Open heart, open mind. Welcome to the Sattva channel, the official platform of the Sattva project. I'm Sharad Wong, the co-founder of the Sattva project. So first of all, I would like to express our gratitude to our StreamYard sponsor and media partner, Durian ASEAN and Durian FM. And not to forget also a very important man behind the scene, who is our assistant broadcast director, Brother Ray. Brother Ray, would you like to say hi to everybody on the stream?
Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining today's conversation. Please remember to like and share this to let more people benefit from it. If you're watching this later on YouTube, please remember to subscribe to our channel, like and share the video. Now back to you.
Thanks, Ray. So today we are having a Samīkṣā Series with the title New Episode of a Discussion of Madhyamaka Philosophy based on Aryadeva's 400 verse treatise. So today we're having this conversation on the Madhyamaka school with the name of Samīkṣā Series, with the purpose of introducing Buddhist philosophy to the public as well as to the public, to the Buddhist community, about the importance and significance of Buddhist philosophies such as Madhyamaka and Yogacara. And we need to have a healthy discussion and critical analysis on these philosophical subjects as well. Hence the name Samīkṣā Series. So first of all, I would like to introduce to you the two moderators for today. First will be Samiksha Meshram. She's a dialogue coordinator of Sattva Youth. Samiksha Meshram is currently a student who studies and resides in Thailand. She came from the central part of India, Madhya Pradesh. She has completed her BA from Nagarjuna Training Institute, Nagpur, Maharashtra, on 2019. She continued her MA in Buddhist Studies from the International Buddhist College, Thailand. And then she's interested in studying different aspects of Buddhist philosophy. And currently she's preparing for her PhD program. Welcome, Samiksha Meshram.
Thank you, Brother Sharad.
Next will be Samiksha Kamble, and same name as well, both of them. So this is where our series coming from, Samiksha, the name. So Samiksha Kamble is a dialogue coordinator of Sattva Youth as well. She came from the western part of India, Maharashtra. She's currently a student who studies and resides in Thailand. She has completed her bachelor's degree in 2019 from Nagarjuna Training Institute in Nagpur, Maharashtra. Then she continued her MA in Buddhist Studies in International Buddhist College, Thailand. And she's interested as well in studying different aspects of Buddhist philosophy, and presently she's preparing for a PhD as well. Welcome, Samiksha Kamble.
Thank you, Brother Sharad. Hello, everyone.
Okay, now the floor is yours to Samiksha.
Thank you, Brother Sharad.
Okay, so once again, I welcome you all to our Samīkṣā Series. So to begin with today's session, let us introduce our today's contributor, Bem Mitruev. Bem Mitruev is a translator from the Tibetan language from 1995 to 2005. Bem studied at the Central Institute of Higher Tibetan Studies in Varanasi, where he studied Tibetan history, poetry, Buddhist philosophy, Tibetan language, Sanskrit and Hindi. Bem received the degree of Acharya, Master of Buddhist Philosophy. He currently works as a translator for the Buddhist teachers who come to Russia to teach. So, a warm welcome to Brother Bem.
Okay, so to begin with our discussion, on Madhyamaka philosophy, and today specifically Aryadeva's Chaturvashatak. So, Brother Prem, our question is like start from the very beginning that the Chaturvashatak itself is a very extensive text, and we would like to begin our discussion by uh, letting you explain some Aryadeva's life and his significant role in Madhyamaka philosophy.
So let me shortly introduce Aryadeva and his text 400 stanzas. First of all, I need to say that probably you know Nagarjuna, one of the great Buddhist philosophers, founder of the Madhyamaka philosophy school of Buddhism. And one of his main students, some people say, some scholars say that he was his student of the later part of Nagarjuna's life was Aryadeva. So he was probably living in the third century uh, in southern India, and there are several accounts about his life. Some people say, for example, Taranatha, one of the Tibetan historians, he bases his account on statement of Chandrakirti. According to his statement, Aryadeva was born as heir to the king of Panchashriga. But it's kind of interesting because I couldn't find any mentioning of this king under this name Panchashriga. So let's say that probably he was a prince. He was from a royal family. And another biography that was translated by Kumarajiva into Chinese states that Aryadeva was born into South Indian Brahmin family. So there are at least two traditions, at least two stories. One story tells us that he was born to Sri Lanka or Simhala, and the second story tells us that he was born to South Indian Brahmin family. Well, nowadays quite difficult for us to say exactly what was his story, but what's important that most of the scholars agree that he was one of the students, direct students of Nagarjuna, and it's quite important. And it's also necessary to say that among the 84 Mahasiddhas, 84 great accomplished yogis, he is identified with the Karnaripa, who studied with Nagarjuna in the practice of living or living off vital essences compounded into pills. So this is what's called Rasayana. So he was one of the accomplished scholars and practitioners in Madhyamaka, in Buddhist philosophy, but also in tantric practice. That's according to the Mahayana tradition. During the time he remained with Nagarjuna, Aryadeva gained many powerful attainments and proficiencies in both orthodox and heterodox philosophical systems. So it means that he knew Buddhist philosophy very well. But besides Buddhist philosophy, he also knew philosophical schools of the Indian philosophy schools. And it's quite obvious from his work of Chatusataka of 400 standards. We today will look into two chapters out of 16 from his work, 400 stanzas, and we will see that he also was quite proficient in non-Buddhist philosophy. We will see it from his statements and from his work. And it is also traditionally said that he won a dispute with Brahmin called Durdarshaka. I'm sorry, Durdarshakala, whom Taranatha identifies with Matrichetta, who was, according to the Tibetan tradition, in fact, Ashvaghosha, one of the famous Indian poets who later became a Buddhist. So it is said there is a long story. I will not be telling this story because it's too long, but he had a dispute and he had a dispute with this Matrichetta, and they had this dispute like a debate, philosophical debate, and then later they also fought with the magical powers. And there is a long account in Tibetan history as they flew in the sky and tried to fight each other with fire and water and etc. But I think that account is not as much important and this as his works that he wrote. And talking about his works, I will be talking only about the Tibetan tradition because Chinese tradition differs a little bit. And this is page number 4. If you would kindly, page number 4, it's number 1. Next one, please. And again. No, it's and you see that most of Aryadeva's works were not preserved in the original Sanskrit, so we cannot find them in the original Sanskrit, but those works were translated into Tibetan and Chinese. And the fact that they were translated into Chinese and Tibetan, both of the languages that preserved Mahayana texts that were translated from Sanskrit into Tibetan and Chinese, also underlines the importance of the Aryadeva's work for the Buddhist philosophy, especially for the Madhyamaka Buddhist philosophy. And in Tengyur, it's Buddhist canon, Tibetan canon that preserves many of the Shastras translated from Sanskrit, contains several works attributed to Aryadeva. And the most important work is Catusataka that we are going to discuss now. But besides of the 400 stanzas, he also was the author of the Charamelaka Pradipa, one of the main or one of the important texts on the Guhya Samaja practice, Guhya Samaja tantric practice. Besides, you below can see 2 small works that also attributed to Aryadeva. And now, next slide, please. Now I will be talking about the translations of this work. It's interesting that only Tibetan commentaries until now, only Tibetan commentaries were translated into English. One is the commentary by Rendava. Rendava was a Sakya scholar, and if you know Tibetan school of Buddhism that is named Gelug, the founder of that school was Lama Tsongkhapa. And one of the main teachers of Lama Tsongkhapa was Rendava from the Sakya school. So this is one of the translations, one of the commentaries. It was translated by Tashi Tsering and I'm sorry. Yes, it was translated by Tashi Tsering and Stotter Tillman. The second translations that our today's slideshow is based on is the translation of the commentary by Gyaltsab Rinpoche, one of the Lama Tsongkhapa's main students, and it was translated by Geshe Sonam Rinchen, who worked in the Tibetan Library of Archives and Documents in Dharmasala and Ruth Sonam. This is the translation that we will use today in our slideshow. Next slide, please. And one of the very interesting points, but I think is also quite important to mention, at least 2 Indian scholars who knew Tibetan quite well. They restored the Sanskrit text of the Catusataka into Sanskrit from Tibetan, and it also underlines the importance of this text for the Madhyamaka philosophy, because besides of the Nagarjuna, who wrote the very important text on the fundamental text on Madhyamaka, Mula Madhyamaka Karika, this 400 stanzas of Aryadeva is also one of the main texts on the Madhyamaka. So you see, one of the great scholar, Vaidya, he translated into French the 9 chapters out of 16, and he restored them into Sanskrit. And later, Bhattacharya, he also restored parts of the Chandrakirti's commentary on 400 stanzas, and the 400 stanzas, 9 chapters of this text into Sanskrit. And actually, I need to say, when you study this Catusataka, it quite helps to use Bhattacharya's reconstruction, because he was very good scholar. He was very good scholar, and he knew Tibetan quite well. And this is also shows us the importance of Tibetan tradition for the study of the Mahayana texts, and especially Madhyamaka texts that are not available in Sanskrit. Tibetan translations are quite faithful and they could be useful in order for the study of the Sanskrit or for the study of the Indian Shastras. So there are two reconstructions. And next slide, please. And of course, yes, Aryadeva was very significant, played very significant role in the Madhyamaka philosophy. First of all, because this commentary, Catusataka, they say, some of the scholars say that this Catusataka is kind of commentary on the Mula Madhyamaka Karika of Nagarjuna. It doesn't comment all of the words, but the second part of the Chatushataka comments on the meaning of the Mula Madhyamaka Karika, and from this point of view, it's quite important in the Madhyamaka philosophy. So now I will shortly go through the contents of this text Chatushataka, and it must be said that it is divided in two parts by the Dharmapala, one of the scholars of India. He divided this text into two parts. One part that relates to the conventional truth, and the second part that is connected to the ultimate truth. So, all in all, the text consists of the 16 chapters, and I will shortly tell about the contents of all of the chapters. So, chapter number one, as you can see, it deals with the five skandhas, such as Rupa and others, and originated depending on the causes and effects. Those which have originated are not eternal, eternal, and etc. So the second chapter talks about those which are not eternal, generates one's pain, and therefore are causing misery, and as such they are always cause of afflictions and consequently are impure. Third chapter, the next one, tells us about the idea of I, about the self, and it tells us there is neither I or nor mine. The fourth chapter tells us about illusion. These worldly things appear otherwise. They appear to be eternal and causing happiness, pure and I and mine, but this is wrong view. Next slide, please. So in chapter number 5, Bodhisattva Charya, the practices of bodhisattvas or the actions of bodhisattvas are dealt with. And in chapter number 6, kleshas or impurities or obscurations that interrupt the practices of bodhisattvas are explained. Now in chapter number 7, uh, the object senses, so-called in Sanskrit Vishayas, are the cause of the origination and staying and growth, and those are objects of that are discussed in the chapter number 7. And chapter number 8 deals with the purification of the mind of the disciples before this disciple is fit to listen to the explanation of the truth of things. So as you can see, the first 8 chapters deal with the conventional truth and prepare, so to say, the student for the next study, for the next half of the text. And it is said here the remaining 8 chapters discuss the things around us that what can be regarded as their own characteristics or nature. Next slide, please. So these are chapters. Can you hear me? Okay. Because it seems to me that I cannot hear you, but it's okay. So next 8 chapters are dealing with the ultimate truth. These are the chapters that are we will be dealing with, and actually not all of the chapters, but only the 2 beginning ones, chapter 9 and chapter 10. So chapter number 9 showing the contemplation of the refutation of things regarded as eternal. Chapter 10 will be talking about showing the contemplation of the refutation of Atman. Chapter number 11, there is a misprint, I'm sorry, showing the contemplation of the refutations of time. Chapter 12 shows the contemplation of the refutation on wrong views. Chapter number 13 showing the contemplation of the refutation of the senses and their objects. Chapter number 14 showing the contemplation of the refutation of the adherence to the extremes. And chapter number 15 showing the contemplation of the refutation on the compound things. And the most important chapter, chapter number 16, showing the contemplation of the discussion between the teacher and the pupil. So all in all, this is shortly the content of the chapters. I understand that it's probably not possible to understand the meaning of the chapters from such short explanations. But in order to understand the meaning of whole of text, you need to read the translation and the explanation. And what I need to say is quite interesting that Tibetan translations were translated into English, but not the most important and the only available Indian commentary of Chandrakirti was never translated into English. It's quite amazing why it didn't happen, because the most profound and most clear commentary on the Catusataka of Aryadeva is Chandrakirti's commentary, and it's available in Tibetan, but until now it seems to me that nobody has translated it into English. I think it would be good if somebody would take this work and translate it into Tibetan. It would be quite good for the understanding of the text. So next slide, please. So I will, as I said before, Catusataka Shastra is divided by the present poet, it means Dharmapala, into two parts in accordance with the arrangement found in the book. One consists of the 200 karikas. So Catusataka means like 400 stanzas. And out of 400 stanzas, 200 karikas teach on Dharma, and the other consisting 200 karikas regarding the disputation. So disputation about the ultimate truth, about Atman and emptiness. And each karikas in the first 8 chapters use drishtantas or examples used by Acharya Dharmadasa and are read as explained with the karikas. So if you read the first chapters, you will see that almost every stanza is also has some example that is explained in the commentary. And these drishtantas or examples found in the commentary of Acharya Dharmadasa and were not composed by Chandrakirti himself. So Chandrakirti used the Dharmadasa's explanation. Next slide, please. So today we will be talking about the 2 chapters, chapter 9 and chapter 10. Chapter 9 tells us about the refuting permanent functional phenomena, and chapter 10 refuting misconception of the self. So we will be going through some of the shlokas, because it's not possible to go through all of the shlokas today, because every chapter out of 16 has 25 shlokas. So all in all, it will be 50 shlokas in 2 chapters. It's not possible to go through all of the shlokas, but we will try to do it. We will try to go through some of the most important shlokas from these 2 chapters. So let's start with the first one. Next slide, please. So we will be starting with the first chapter, and I need to say that first chapters out of the second part deal with the presentations of the non-Buddhist philosophical schools. And why it's important? Because when we talk about ego clinging, when we talk about self-clinging or self-grasping, they translate it differently into English. What's called in Sanskrit atmagraha. When you talk about atmagraha or self-grasping, there are 2 kinds of atmagraha. And first is imputed ego clinging or self-grasping. So parikalpita atmagraha. And that's what is dealt with in the first chapters out of the second part. And there is also what they call intrinsic ego grasping. Intrinsic ego grasping, or in Sanskrit sahaja atmagraha. This is what dealt mainly in the last chapter and in the second part of the 8 chapters that composite the second part of the Catusataka. So explaining the stages of the past depend on the ultimate truth has 2 parts. The first is the extensive explanation of the ultimate truth. The second shows the purpose of writing these chapters and how to meditate on the settling the procedure between teacher and the student by way of eliminating remaining counter arguments. So actually, the second part is explained in the 16th chapter. But today we will not be, unfortunately, we will not be able to have to look through the last chapter. We will be dealing only with 2 chapters. And the extensive explanation of the ultimate truth begins with a general refutation of the true existence. So this is very important because Mahayana Buddhists, especially Madhyamaka followers, refute or they object or they do not recognize the true existence. They say that all of the phenomena lack this true existence. They do not exist truly. And so refutation of the true existence by refuting permanent functional phenomena. So this is the first question that Samiksha sent to me. So this will be dealing with the refutation of true existing permanent phenomena, and this is followed by the refuting truly existing functional phenomena individually, and finally the inherent existence of production, duration, and disintegration, the characteristics of product is refuted. Next slide, please. So general refutations, refutation of true existence by refuting permanent functional phenomena is as follows. So there is first, here comes the assumption by the non-Buddhist philosophical schools, and then the answer is given. So it is said here that some things are both functional and permanent and truly existing. So basically, what does it mean? It means that some of the schools or most of the non-Buddhist schools says that there are functional things that are permanent but still can function. And from the Buddhist point of view, it's not possible, because if something is permanent, it cannot function, because function is the quality of the impermanent things. For example, like producing result and etc. This is a function. And if something functions, it cannot be permanent, because permanent thing doesn't function. It doesn't changes, because function always means change. And if something changes, it cannot be permanent. So basically, this is the basic, the main argument against existence of a thing that is functional and permanent at the same time. So it must be either permanent or functional. It cannot be both. And like permanent without being a cause and effect. So if something can be a cause is also producing something, and if it produces something, it's also does some function. And as said before, it's not possible to be functioning and permanent. So such a thing cannot be a cause. But some of the non-Buddhist schools of Indian philosophy, they say that, for example, Atman, it's permanent, and it's at the same time it is a cause. It functions as a cause. It produces phenomena. It produces things. And from the point of view of Aryadeva and Nagarjuna, it's not possible. And it's also said here that permanent and causal without being an effect. So it's also not possible, because from the point of view of Aryadeva and Nagarjuna, whatever is cause also must be a subject, or must be a result, must be an effect. You cannot posit in cause that in turn itself doesn't become an effect. It's not possible. And next slide, please. And so here's the answer. Everything is both cause and effect. Nothing is permanent. All phenomena are functional, produce. So it means that all phenomena that are functional obviously must produce an effect. And everything is a cause. Without a function, it's not. It is not. It is as non-existent. So if something doesn't function, we can say almost that it's not existent, non-existent, because it doesn't produce anything. It doesn't do anything. So it's kind of inert. So it's almost like non-existent. And without a function, it is not perceptible directly or indirectly. So it is said here that if it doesn't function, we cannot see, we cannot perceive this directly or indirectly. And next slide, please. So this is the opening shloka of the ninth chapter. You see, it's shloka number 201. And as I said before, the second part of the Catusataka starts from the 200. The second part of the Catusataka consists of 200 shlokas. So this is the first one of those 200 shlokas, 201. And it is said here that all are produced from the effects. So all phenomena are produced from their effects. Thus, none are permanent. There are no one who knows this accordingly other than subduers who know things as they are. So I altered the translation a little bit. You see in the brackets this word Tathagata. Tathagata means gata means there are many different meanings of this word gata, and gata could mean the gone one, the one who gone to, or the one who has come, but also it means the one who understood. So it is said here that all are produced, all phenomena, all things. I'm sure not phenomena. All things are produced for their effect. So we can say that none of them are permanent, and there is nobody who accordingly understood it, Tathagata, accordingly or truly understood it, other than the subduers. So subduer here is the equivalent of Sanskrit Muni. So there are no Buddhists, except Buddhists, nobody could understand it rightly. So next slide, please. I hope you follow me. I hope I'm not too confusing. So next slide is slide 205. It's the same chapter. And it's said here, so we start with the space and etc. Because you see, let's read it. That space and so forth are permanent is a conception of common beings. For the wise, they are not object perceived even by conventional valid cognition. So the commentary of Gyaltsab Rinpoche, I took this part from the commentary of Gyaltsab Rinpoche. It comes from this commentary, the explanation, and it is said here the case of space and the two types of cessations. So you remember there are two types of cessation. We will be talking about them shortly, and it is said here that space is not permanent functional thing. It's not a real thing. It's a negation. So, for example, some of the non-Buddhist schools, they say that space is a real thing. And from the Madhyamaka point of view, this space is not a real thing. It's just a negation. And we will be talking about this. There is no such things as permanent functional things as proved before. Cessations are also mere negations, the stopping of illusions based on ignorance, not something existing that would be permanent. So what he's saying basically is that these cessations are not a substance. It's just a negation. And nirvana is a removal of ignorance or abstractions like space. It's not a permanent, really existing thing. Can we turn to the next page, please? So you see, that's what needs to be said here in order to understand what he is meaning, the meaning of the words that were put before. A phenomenon that lacks the nature to disintegrate is asserted to be permanent. So this is what the meaning of the permanent phenomena. So any phenomena that doesn't have this nature to disintegrate, that doesn't disintegrate, is asserted to be permanent. And this is unlike non-Buddhist and Vaibhashika assertion. Therefore, although a clay pot's state of having ceased did not exist earlier, before the pot has been destroyed, it does exist later and so must be posited as permanent. In other words, a permanent phenomenon does not necessarily exist at all times. So I hope that you understand what's said here. I hope it's not too complicated. I mean, the words of the explanation are not too complicated. But what means this is one of the questions Samiksha's asked it before, and this is the kind of explanation answer to that question. So you see, a permanent phenomenon does not necessarily exist at all times. It's quite kind of strange, because if a permanent phenomenon, it must be permanent. But from this point of view, it doesn't necessarily exist at all times. Take, for example, analytical cessation. So we were talking about two cessations, and one of the two cessations is analytical cessation, which is the state of having abandoned that which is to be abandoned on the path of vision. So you remember there are 5 paths, and the third path of vision. And on this path, we abandon what needs to be abandoned during this path. And it is said here, it is posited as a permanent, even though it does not exist until what is to be abandoned has been removed, and it does exist at the time of removal. So you see, this cessation is permanent, but it didn't exist before we have abandoned what needed to be removed. And also, Prasangika asserts that the state of having ceased is a thing. Here it is based on the Sautrantika Chittamatra and Svatantrika Madhyamaka, so this example. And in the same way, when the subject is overturned, even the pure nature of suchness becomes absent. So what it means? If we have a functional thing, for example, a pot, and of course, from the Madhyamaka point of view, this pot doesn't exist truly. But and this emptiness of the pot is also permanent. But if you destroy the pot itself, there is no emptiness or suchness of this pot, because this pot doesn't exist anymore. And it is said here, if there is no the thing that has the quality will disappear too. So this is,
Um,
yes.
yeah, Brother Bem, can you please explain what is Prasatya Pratisheth? Just now I saw here, yeah. Non-implicative, I couldn't see that word. Pratisheth.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The lower part of the explanation of the slide is cut. I'm sorry. So probably you cannot see it. But I will read about this right now. I will tell about this right now. It's temporary. So what is meant here? It is temporal. Suchness is temporary, but not impermanent. Why? Because it is a non-implicative negation. Non-implicative negation. What does it mean? For example, if I say there is no pot, this is non-implicative negation, because when I say it, there is no pot in this room, it means that it's simply negation of the pot. If I say it is not a pot, it means that it's something else. For example, I show something, let's say a blanket, and I say that this is not a pot. What it means? This is implicative negation. I negated being a pot, but still, it means that it is something else. And non-implicative negation is just simple negation of the thing itself. I say there is no pot, and there is no implicating something. So there are two negations in Buddhist philosophy. One is non-implicative negation, and the second one is implicative. Yes.
So, Brother Bem, uh, non-implicative, just now you have given example of pot. So when there is no pot, so it is just saying that there is no pot in that specific place.
Yes.
It's not the complete negation of that
Yes. 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 Of
pot,
course.
and it
No.
is
No. No.
saying that there is
No. No.
something
No.
else. It is saying that the pot is not existed. Pot is not there in that specific place only. Is
Yes.
that?
Yes, you can understand it this way. Or, for example, if you say that there is no true existence, when we say that there is no true existence of phenomena, we are not talking, of course, we are not talking about one specific place. We are talking about the negation of the existence of this true existence. So so that's why we say that suchness or emptiness is this non-implicative negation. And I need to say that there are different opinions, different explanations of the suchness and emptiness, but from one of the explanations or one of the point of views, so some scholars say that this emptiness is non-implicative negation. So let me continue, because it is a non-implicative negation. that is then mere elimination of the object of its object of negation. When the basis of features ever turn, the feature is eliminated. That's what I was saying before. And it is not that it has disintegrated due to having the nature of to disintegrate. So you see, that's what meant here. It is said here that this space and two cessations are not some kind of substance. It is said here that these are just negations, and it must be understood that those are permanent, but they do not disintegrate because they do not have this nature to disintegrate, and they are not impermanent. I'm not too confusing. Let's switch to the next slide. I will try to make it a little bit more clear. Before we explore the issue of changing, this is another book. Quite good explanation. Had to use it. Before we explore the issue of change of cessation further, cessation we were talking about, we should first know that when Dharmakirti, so this is explanation of Dharmakirti philosophy, argues against any real distinction between properties and the things. So we have a thing and we have qualities or properties of this thing. And the things that possess them, he frequently mentions a corollary that whatever causes the thing must also be the cause of all its properties, since the properties are nothing but the thing itself. And this follows simply from the notion that once the thing has arisen, whatever comes into existence after that thing must be something other than that thing. And since it's other than the thing, on Dharmakirti's view, it cannot correctly be counted as a property of the thing, since the property must be identical to that thing. So shall I continue to the next slide? Is it okay? Do you have questions?
The
I think there is
previous
question. Yes,
the
Samiksha.
previous slide which you showed, brother Ray. Can we have the previous slide? Yeah. Can you please simplify this with an example?
Well, for example, if we have a pot,
Okay.
this pot has many qualities. It's made of clay, it's red, blue, and etc. And what seems to be saying here, what Chandrakirti seems to be saying here, that if you destroy the thing, uh, these qualities are also make part of this. Qualities of the thing are actually the thing. And if there is no thing, there are no qualities of the same thing. So he says that, for example, pot being a cause cannot be taken away from the pot. You cannot say that this aspect of the pot being a cause is different from the pot. What he is saying, this is a quality of a pot, and it's the same. The qualities of the pot actually are the pot. You cannot say that the being caused, this aspect of the pot is different from the pot, or aspect of being a result of the pot could be taken away from the pot. It's not possible. And what he's saying, that's what he says when he says that uh, the things and its properties nothing but the thing itself.
Okay. Maybe we can also take the question from audience. How can we unite two truths on the pod?
So that is one of the views. You see, in Indian philosophy, in Indian Buddhist philosophy, there are two views on the ultimate and conventional truth of the thing. For example, a pot. From the conventional point of view, it's a thing. But there is also ultimate truth of the pot. There is lack of the true existence of the pot. And two things: this pot and it's being empty of the true existence. Are they related or not? And you see, mostly we say that they are connected. They are same substance, they are same essence, but two different aspects, or what they call usually they translate it isolates. So basically it means like aspects of the same thing. So there is conventional, there is a conventional aspect to the pot, and there is absolute aspect to the pot. And absolute aspect of the pot is its emptiness, and those things must be of the same essence, but they are two different isolates. They are two different aspects of the same thing. Because if those were different isolates, unrelated things, then understanding or perceiving the emptiness of the pot would not help, would not be related in any way to the pot, and it's kind of nonsense. For example, if I would perceive the lack of true existence of the person, it would not be helping. It would not be related to the person, because those two levels would be not connected. So that's one of the widely accepted explanations. So maybe we need to turn to the next slide. What do you think? Shall we continue?
Yes, yes.
Yes, brother.
Yeah, thank you. So this is the next shloka, next stanza from the Catusataka. A single direction is not present wherever there is that which has directions. That with directions, therefore, clearly also has other directional parts. But what we are talking here now is the idea of the constant substantial space that is presented or claimed to exist by non-Buddhist philosophical schools of India. And here, Aryadeva refutes this notion, this idea about such space. Space is not absolute, permanent, since it depends on directional parts. That's what he says. And some things that something that the space is a real permanent functional thing. So you need to understand here that what we are talking about is the idea, non-Buddhist idea about the space. It's permanent functional thing. So it must be functional and permanent at the same time. And it's not possible, as Aryadeva says. He says not an effect inherently existing, but a real permanent thing exists on its own, would not be dependent on its parts. Since space obviously can be divided into parts and directions, it cannot be defined without talking about objects, movement, directions. It's not an independently existing thing. So you see, he's saying that space is also not independently existing thing. Doesn't have this inherent existence, so it's not inherently existing. And there is no absolute referential. It's always relative. Space is an effect dependent on the mind conceiving it. Space and object like nirvana and samsara are codependently arising concepts, forming an apparent duality that needs to be transcended. So what he's saying basically here is that this space cannot be inherently existing. And for example, if we see that the space to the eastern side and space to the northern side and western side and etc. are not the same space. So it means that this space must have parts. And what we call this space, it's not a substance. From Buddhist point of view, it's just negation of the abstraction and of the tangible objects. So this is just negation from the point of view of Aryadeva. So it's not a functional thing. And moreover, we need to say that it depends on the existence or the existence of the idea of space dependent on the part of the space and etc. So what he wants to say that this space also lacks true existence. And I didn't put the he has several shlokas about this, several stanzas about this space, about refutation of this idea of space, but I didn't put it here because the slide would be too long. But he's talking about, for example, the space that occupies the insides of the pot on the east is not the same space as the space that occupies inside of this pot on the west. So those are two different parts of the space. They cannot be together at the same time, because this way the two parts would be the same. He's saying, and basically it means that this is not the one undividable space that permeates everything. That's what he's saying. So I hope it's yes. This exactly. This is the answer to the question of number 3. So he is saying that Vaibhajika says that this space is functional as substance and it's permanent. And Aryadeva says that it's not possible. It's not possible to be functional, permanent, and it's not possible for the space to be like one. Because you see, there is space on the eastern side and western side, as I say before. So he refutes this idea of the Vaibhajika about Vaibhajika's understanding or idea about the space. So probably we should go to the next next slide. What do you think?
Oh, you are muted, Samiksha.
Yes.
Yes, yes. We can move towards our next slide.
And the next slide. As far as I understand, I'm sorry, Samiksha, you were muted. I couldn't understand the question. Probably you wanted to ask something. I hope we will have I hope we will have time for the questions if there are some left. So in this shloka, if you look at this shloka, it's kind of maybe not too clear if you read it from the beginning, but the cause which is spherical, it's not present in the effect. Thus, complete interpretation of particle is not feasible. So what's spherical here? And it's as I said to you before, it's very good to sometimes look at the reconstruction, Sanskrit reconstruction of the shloka by Bhattacharya. It's really helpful sometimes. For Bhattacharya, he knew the Vaibhashika and Sankhya philosophy very well. And he reconstructs this spherical as parimandalya. Parimandala means a sphericity or atomic magnitude or special kind of dimension of a particle. So this particle occupies some dimension, it has some size, so to say, it has some magnitude. And there are different particles with different magnitude, but what we are talking now is paramanu. So this particle has some sphericity, so to say, or magnitude or special kind of dimension. And Dravya Paramanu has definition. It is said in the Chandrakirti commentary. That's why you need to treat Chandrakirti commentary. Though, unfortunately, it's not completely translated into Sanskrit, reconstructed into Sanskrit by Bhattacharya. But still, some of the most important parts are reconstructed into Sanskrit. And it is said there that Dravya Paramanu has definition. This Dravya Paramanu is that which is a cause, spherical and directionless. So spherical means that it has some magnitude. It has it occupies some dimension, so to say. It has some kind of dimension. And Vaisheshika says, although particles interpenetrate completely because they are partless, a separate accretion of coalesced particles forms which produces the composite. So basically, what is said here, Vaisheshika says that these particles do not have parts. They do not have parts, and it means that they do not have sides. So there is no left side, right side, front side, back side. But if there are two particles that do not have side, when they connect, it means that they will collapse. It means that they will, it is said here, interpenetrate. So basically, it means that if there are no sides of the particles, they will just occupy the place or the dimension on one particle because they do not have sides. Because if they had sides, they would like connect with the sides, like left side of the one particle would connect to the right side to the other particle, but they are partless. And Aryadeva says then they will interpenetrate each other. They will collapse into one particle and completely. And it's not possible. But Vaisheshika says that even though separate accretion of coalesced particles forms, which produces the composite, so they mean it is meant here. It is meant here that anyway these particles will produce some composite that consists of many particles. And Aryadeva answers, it follows that it's not feasible for particles to interpenetrate completely when composite form. Otherwise, there would be just one particle. If they merge completely, there will be no gradual increase in size from the first to the second composite and so forth. That's what he said before. So it's not possible that these particles do not have sides, because they will not be able to compositive form, because they will interpenetrate or collapse into one particle. Basically, that's what he says. And this way, he denies the existence of partless particle. He says that these particles, no matter how small, they must have size. They must have parts. So probably we will switch to the next slide.
Brother Bem,
Yes.
could you please explain this? What they mean by saying directionless?
Directionless, it means that, for example, if particle, I didn't put this shloka into the slide. Probably I should have. For example, if a particle moves, there must be direction to which it moves. So it means that there is a front direction of a particle, back direction of the particle. And if there are directions, there must be parts of the particle. And for example, if particles moves forward, there is a front part that like moves ahead, and there is a back part of the particle that, so to say, leaves the space behind. But if there is no directions for the particle, it's not possible. If there is no directions of a particle, then there is no parts of the particle. So it's not possible. It means that those particles must have sides, must have parts, must have directions.
Okay.
Brother Bem,
Yes.
can we, can you please explain this first two line? The cause which is spherical is not present in the effect. It's not quite clear to me, I think.
So what he's saying that this cause that occupies some dimension, that has some kind of special kind of dimension. So basically, it means that it occupies some dimension, is not present in the effect. So it is said that if these particles connect together, for example, many particles make some, let's say, pot. Pot is made of the particles, yes? And he is saying that if your particle doesn't have sides, it cannot have this spherical, it cannot have this dimension. Because if there are no sides, then this particle will collapse into the one, and there will be no, they will not be present in the effect. It means that they will not be able to create a pot. And it means that they say that there is special kind of dimension to the particle, but it will not be existent in the pot. It will not be existent in the effect, because they do not have sides. If they do not have sides, they will collapse into the same. So it's not possible for such a particle to produce an effect, to produce in a pot. And that's what he's saying, that this quality of special kind of dimension, this parimandalya. So this quality or feature or quality of the spherical, of the particle will not be present in the effect. That's how I understand it.
So, Brother Bem, according to this work, this particular particle which they are talking about is spherical, right? Is spherical in shape.
Yes. That's what.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, this is Vaisheshika. This is Vaisheshika claim, and that's what they say. This particle is partless, but it is permanent. First of all, for Aryadeva says it's not permanent, but from the Vaisheshika point of view, it's permanent, it's partless, and it has this quality of Parimandalia. So it has some atomic magnitude. Actually, they say of the couples are particles, of the triplets of particles, but we will not talk about this. This is Vaisheshika claim. This is Vaisheshika assertion.
Yeah, actually, where we were confused while reading this verse was we couldn't identify what this spherical is referring to. We were not able to relate this spherical with particles. And
Oh,
Yeah.
I understand. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. That's why, as I said before, sometimes, if it's possible, it's necessary to compare the translation to the Sanskrit text if it's existent. And in the case of Bhattacharya, of course, he didn't have the Sanskrit. He put some parts that are existent in Sanskrit that were quoted in some Sanskrit works from the Chatushataka, but of course he didn't have all the text. But his reconstructions is quite good as far as I can judge, and my judgment is quite poor. But still, it seems to me that he is good. He is good, and I need to say more. He wrote. He was one of the followers of Rabindranath Tagore. And in Tibetan, he wrote a shloka in Tibetan, offering to him this reconstruction of the 9 chapters of, not eight, 9 chapters, from 8 to 16th. He offered to Rabindranath Tagore, and he wrote it in Tibetan. And judging by this shloka, he was good. He knew Tibetan well, so I think that his reconstruction is quite faithful. Though sometimes he criticizes Vaidya a lot. Actually, it seems to me that he criticizes him all the time. But no matter, no, it's not important. If you use his reconstructions, probably it would help to understand the meaning.
So, Brother Bim, we don't have this actual root text of this
No,
verse.
no.
No, we don't. It's
Uh,
reconstructed.
Yes, it's reconstructed from the chapter 8 to 16, and also there is a reconstruction of the first 8 chapters done in Sarnath in the Central Institute of Higher Tibetan Studies by Negiji. You should probably it's published now. I just don't know. I'm not sure, but there was a reconstruction into Sanskrit of the first part of the Chatushataka too. So probably it's published now.
But it is in Tibetan, yeah?
Yes,
It is
it is in
available in
Tibetan. It was
Tibetan.
yes, it was reconstructed from Tibetan. And if I'm not mistaken, there is also a translation by Tucci, but I didn't use it. I'm sorry, I didn't use it. So let's turn to the next shloka. What do you think? Should we?
we have one
Yeah.
question from audience.
Okay.
Okay, let's take that question.
Does knowing one
question?
truth help to know another truth or not? If yes, then how? Well, it seems to me that it's the knowledge of the ultimate truth is based on the conventional truth. For example, if you want to understand the emptiness of a person, you need first to understand to apprehend the person. You cannot apprehend the emptiness of the person without the person. And if you are to apprehend emptiness of a pot, you need to apprehend the pot itself. So it seems to me. But it is also said that in the meditational equipoise, you do not see the conventional truth. You do not see conventional things. For example, if you apprehend the emptiness of the pot in the meditative equipoise, you do not see the pot itself. But those things, the conventional truth and absolute truth, they are interrelated. So one thing cannot go without the other. That's my opinion. That's how I see it. Shall we move on? Because we have still some slides that probably would be good to go through. So next shloka says one particle position. So you see, when you say position, you need to understand what does it mean. So occupied place. It's not the exact meaning. I just try to convey convey the meaning of the shloka. So I paraphrase in the brackets in order to make the shloka more easy to understand. Maybe my understanding, maybe my interpretation is wrong, but I hope it's not too wrong. So one particle's position or occupied place is not asserted as also that of another. Thus, it is not asserted that cause and effect are the same size. So you see, he basically says the same. He says that one particle occupies some place, another particle occupies some place, and the places or positions or the places or the space of those articles are not the same. Because otherwise, if they were the same, they would, as I said before, they would just interpenetrate themselves, and they would occupy just one the place in one article. And that's what he's saying. This way it is not asserted that cause and effect are the same size. And what Gyaltsab in his commentary says, very complete interpenetration does not occur. One particle's position will not be asserted as also that of the another. Thus, since the causal particles are resultant composite are not asserted to be equal in size, the absurd consequence that the composite is not an object of the senses is avoided. So you see, if those particles would interpenetrate each other, particles are so small that couldn't be seen by our senses. Only the composite matter could be seen by our senses. You see, and he is saying that the absurd consequence that the composite is not object of the senses is avoided. Nevertheless, since the particles have parts, their consequent unfeasibility as permanent functional things remains. Permanent functional things are asserted to be truly existent, which would preclude having an depending upon parts. One of the important things here, Gyaltsab Rinpoche said that what is understood here under permanent existence. He said that permanent functional things are asserted to be truly existent. So he almost puts the sign of equality here between the permanent existence and truly existence, and that's why that's important. We will see it later, I think. In some cases here, when we say, for example, when we say that the two cessations are not permanent, what does he mean? He means that they are not truly existent. This is one of the things that Gyaltsab Rinpoche says in this context. I mean, in the context of this explanation of this those shlokas that we are reading now, he says about the permanent existence. So shall we move on?
Yes.
Yeah, the next slide. And it is said here, for the following reason, two particles, so paramanu, which is indestructible, indivisible, and has special kind of dimension, are not permanent as claimed by Vaisheshika. So this is refutation of one of the claims of Vaisheshika. So as I said before, there are two atmagrahas. And one atmagraha, parikalpita atmagraha, is the self-grasping that is posited by the non-Buddhist philosophy schools. They say that there is Atman, and it has such qualities, and every school of the Indian philosophy asserts some kind of qualities to this Atman. And this is what called parikalpita atmagraha. So this is idea of some Atman that is refuted by Aryadeva. And after that, he continues and he destroys the idea of sahaja atmagraha, or intrinsic or instinctive self-grasping. And this self-grasping that doesn't base itself on the philosophical views of different Indian schools. This is inborn, so to say, self-grasping that every person, every living being in our world has. And this is dealt with in later chapters. What we are now reading is refutation of the ideas of different non-Buddhist philosophical schools about the Atma, about the space, about the particle, about the time. We are not going to read about the refutation of time, but he has this part dealing with the ideas of time, non-changing, constant time, that are posited by the non-Buddhist schools like Vaisheshika and Sankhya and Nyaya and etc. So basically, he refutes those ideas. And why it's important? Because is if we are to progress on the way to understand emptiness, we need to eliminate all the wrong ideas about our own self, about our own I, about myself. And in order to do that, we need to understand that this self doesn't exist as the non-Buddhist philosophical uh, teachers or philosophers say. It doesn't exist this way. And later he also refutes the way as human beings or sentient beings apprehend, or the way they see the Atma. And he says that no, this is wrong, and this Atma doesn't exist as it seems to. It doesn't exist objectively, it doesn't exist by the way of its own characteristics, it doesn't exist truly, it doesn't exist inherently. So he refutes this idea of the existence of this Atma and says that everything is an Atman, everything like this Atma doesn't exist this way, and every phenomena, persons and dharmas or phenomena do not exist truly. And so he continues in shloka number 219. He says, a permanent thing that is abstractive is not seen anywhere. Therefore, Buddha never say that particles are permanent. So what does it mean? It means that those particles are not partless, they are abstractive. So it means that they do not interpenetrate each other, they have sides, and they obstruct each other, so they bump into each other, and they do not interpenetrate each other. They have sides and they are obstructive. And these particles, Vaisheshika say that they are permanent, but he is saying that nobody ever seen particles that are obstructive and are permanent. And that's why Buddhas, not one Buddha Shakyamuni, but all of the Buddhas never say that particles are permanent. They say that they are impermanent. And in one of the Buddhist texts, there is an explanation. They say that particles are not permanent because they appear sometimes, and sometimes they do not appear. So basically, it means that a permanent thing would appear all the time because it's permanent. It's changeless. It cannot change its status. It cannot change its ontological status. It must be permanent all the time. So what he's saying here, he is continuing. He's continuing to refute the idea of the permanent, unchangeable particle that is posited by Vaisheshika. So shall we continue? Shall we go on? Any
Brother,
question?
yeah,
Yes.
I'm really very sorry. Maybe like the whole picture is not so clear to me. But can we like simplify this in very simple words, that particles are obstructive and that they cannot be penetrated completely by others. So can you please just simplify this?
Well, you see, it seems to me, as far as I can understand, there are several ideas that are connected in here. What he is saying here is only part of the explanation. He says that those particles are obstructive. So he means that they have parts. Those particles have parts. So he refutes this aspect of the particle idea of Vaisheshika. And he is saying that they are uh, they are not permanent. So this is another aspect of the Vaisheshika idea about the particles. He is not refuting directly the permanent aspect in this shloka, but he has done it before in the previous shlokas. So those shlokas or stanzas should be seen as a continuum, as the series of shlokas, and the meaning should be understood from the previous shlokas. So he is saying that they are not permanent because he refuted the permanence of the particles before. He is also saying that these abstractive particles are abstractive, so they are not portionless. They are not portionless or sideless, because he also established this in the previous part, and he is saying that uh, it's illogical to posit something like this: permanent, partless, changeless particle. And basically that's what he's saying here. So this is not the whole part of refutation, this is a part of refutation. And the main argument that he's saying here is that Buddhists never said that particles are permanent and non-obstructive. So this is a refutation that relies mainly on the word of the Buddha. So in previous parts he posited the logical arguments, and here he also put this argument of the authority of the Buddhist word. And he said, therefore, Buddhists never say that particles are impermanent. Basically, this is like that.
The last line you said, if I heard it correctly, the Buddhist says that the particles are not permanent or
Yes,
impermanent.
permanent, yes, permanent.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, permanent. Yeah, sure.
Brother, just last, yeah, you said that like before he logically refuted that particles doesn't exist, it's not permanent, and
No.
now
He said that they exist, but they do not exist as the Vaisheshika says, as the Vaisheshika claims. Of course, Buddhist and Aryadeva says that particles are existent, but they are not the same particles as posited by the Vaisheshika. He refutes the idea of the particle that is posited by Vaisheshika.
okay, I misheard it.
He doesn't deny the existence of the particles themselves. It's not possible. Particles exist. They are not permanent. They have sites, and moreover, he is saying that basically they do not have true existence. They cannot be true existent. All the phenomena and particles too are just imputation by our mind. So those are just labels, just imputation by our mind. Yeah. So this is Madhyamaka idea. So
Okay, sorry, brother. We are dwelling. I think we are taking a long time on this slide, but still, I didn't understand this. See, a permanent thing that is obstructive is not seen anywhere, because if it is obstructive, so it must have a part. So a part of it is obstructed.
yeah. You
Okay.
see, what I'm saying, the whole argument is not here. But if you listen to the long argument, probably, as far as I understand it, is like this. So he's saying that permanent thing is obstructive. So first of all, it has sites. Secondly, permanent thing must be functioning, because those particles are elements that construct or produce like parts and everything. And what he's saying that
The
it's not. Yes, I'm sorry.
permanent things functioning, just now you said I didn't understand.
He is denying a permanent thing that functions.
Oh, the opponent
Yes,
saying that
yes,
permanent
yes.
things functioning. Okay, all right then.
Opponent Vaisheshika said that those particles are permanent. They partless, but at the same time they produce things. So when many particles gather together, you can make a pot, you can make everything. You see. And what Aryadeva says, it's not possible. First of all, your particle cannot be partless. Otherwise, they would collapse into one. They cannot be permanent, because permanent things cannot produce anything. They are not changeable. They cannot function, because function is quality of impermanent things. And You see, that's the whole argument. I hope I make myself clear. I'm sorry
Yes.
if I don't.
No, no,
You see,
it's clear
this
to
is
me.
the whole part of the text is dedicated to this refutation of the particle, and this is just one shloka. In order to understand the meaning that lies behind that shloka, you need to read the whole argument. It's not that if taken out of context, it's not clear. It's not that a permanent thing that is abstractive is not seen anywhere. He has explained what it doesn't mean.
Yeah,
Particles being non-permanent, being partless, and being abstractive, and etc. And he sums up everything that he said before, saying that and Buddhists too never said that particles are permanent.
yes, and brother, these particles are obstructive in that they cannot be penetrated completely by other particles. So
Yes,
the idea
exactly,
be okay. So
exactly.
uh, the idea behind this is how to say, because they occupy some space. Is it the idea behind that?
Yes, and you see, if you look up, it's said here particles are obstructive in that they cannot be penetrated completely by other particles. That's the meaning of this being obstructive.
Um, okay, I don't know why I'm a little bit confused with this. But particles are obstructive that they cannot be penetrated completely by other particles. So
Yes,
if they can be penetrated by each other, so it means okay that they will all fall together at one place, and we will not have
yes,
extensions.
exactly, exactly. So you see, what he's saying that if you have particles, atoms, let's say atoms, if you have atoms that do not have sides, so there is no left, there is no right, and there is
Okay.
another particle. They cannot bump. You see, they cannot bump. They do not have sides. If they do not have sides, they will intercollapse. That's what he's saying. They will like they will crunch. They will like collapse into one particle, and all of the multitude of the particle, like million and million of the particles, they do not have sides. They cannot bump into each other. In order to bump into each other, you need to have sides. No sides, I'm sorry, no bumming, no bumming. I'm sorry, everything collapses into one particle, because there is no sides, and everything. If everything collapses into one particle, all of the existence will be one particle and nothing else. That's why we need to say that particles are obstructive. They have sides, and that's why they cannot interpenetrate each other. That's why we can see the masses of the particle that make matter, and this matter can be like pot and Samiksha and my room and the screen and the flowers and everything.
Yes, yes. Actually, maybe this terms are different. So we have studied the same things, and it was easy in those terms. But because of these different terms, maybe it was we were getting confused.
This is
Yeah.
one of the
Yeah.
problems with the human language. Different people call the same things
In
different
different ways.
names.
Yes.
Yes, and sometimes it's quite difficult to understand. There is
Yes.
also a science of terminology when people try to make a system of terminology in order to not to confuse people. And actually, there is a beautiful story about a submarine, American submarine, and particles of that submarine. They created a committee, a group of people who made an inventory list of the parts, and they found out that the same parts were called different names, and it reduced the costs of the maintenance of the submarine. So it happens not only in philosophy, it happens everywhere. But I hope that I make the terminology that used in this translation understandable, at
Yes.
least to some
Yes. Yeah.
degree.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
Brother
Thank
Bem.
you so much. Yeah. Okay. Now let's move to the next slide.
Okay, so the next slide is about the cessations. Although it's true that Buddhists do not mention permanent particles, they say that uncompounded phenomena and permanent. This is agreement. This is that almost all of the schools of Buddhist philosophy agree upon. They say that there are uncompounded phenomena. So uncompounded means that not produced by the cause and conditions, and they are permanent. And for example, there is substantial existent analytical cessation, process niroda. So that's what we were talking about. And non-analytical cessation, on some people translate it as suppression, but I think that cessation is a little bit more usual translation. And space. And if this were not so, it would be inappropriate to speak of the third noble truth. So he's saying that the third noble truth, the truth of cessation, if there were no two cessations, then it would be not appropriate to speak about the third noble truth out of four. So let's turn to the next.
Um,
Uh, Seems that we're missing some explanation on the previous slide. No. So what I was saying, you see, in this commentary, he's saying that basically he refutes space and two cessations to be substance. And it must be understood, when we operate by the same terms, they are filled with the different meaning in different contexts. So, for example, if you talk from the point of view of the Vaisheshika, when you say dravya, when you say substance, it means one thing. When you talk, from example, from the point of view of Vaibhashika, it's another thing. And if we are talking from in the context of this commentary, it's different. You see, it's Madhyamaka, it's a little bit different. So he refutes the idea of the substance of the non-Buddhist schools. And moreover, he says that this he's saying that these two cessations and space, they do not exist as substance. They are just negations. They are just what he's saying, ideas. For example, space. Vaisheshika says that space is a substance, so it's something like a thing, like existing, something that you cannot touch, but still it's some kind of existing thing. What Aryadeva is saying, that this is just a negation, so it's just absence. You see, there is no space except that absence of the matter, absence of the touch, tangible object, and uh, like something that stops other material things. So the same way he's saying that cessation, analytical cessation and non-analytical cessation is just negation. It's just negation of, for example, obscurations. So what he's saying, that analytical cessation is just absence of the, for some reason, the obscuration stop. And this analytical cessation is simply absence of those obscurations, of those clashes. So it's not something that exists as a substance. It's just negation. That's what he says. And this is also our imputation, because all of the phenomena are just imputations. I hope that I'm making myself clear.
Yeah, but we don't have much time now. We are already,
Okay,
I
so
think,
yeah. And we
yeah, more
also
than
yeah,
have
let's
1 hour.
let
Yes.
so what shall we do? Shall we, because we haven't even started the chapter number 10.
I
And
think,
that
yeah.
chapter is quite important, because in the chapter number 10, Aryadeva explains the misconceptions of self by different schools. And it's quite important, because this school of Indian philosophy, they imagine the self to be differently. Some of them say that this Atman or self is matter. Some of them say that it's not matter, and etc. And what shall we do now?
I
Mm,
think we have to
Brother Bem,
conclude now.
let's have another session. Let's have a part two for our next question or discussion, because I think we haven't done our complete presentation now.
Okay, so what
Probably.
shall we do now?
Yeah.
What shall we do now?
Would you like to give any concluding remark?
Oh, well, of course, I would like to give a
Yes.
concluding remark because you see, it's quite. I would like to. I would like to continue a bit if we have opportunity next time, because while explaining 25 tattvas, there is a misprint in the Tibetan text, and because of that, there is a misprint or misunderstanding in the English translation of the commentary of Gyaltsab Rinpoche. It's not important, but still, it would be good to correct it. And what I would like to end up our session, I would like to say that this text is quite important for the study, I think, because it's the understanding the understanding uh, the point of view of Aryadeva, and Aryadeva being uh, a student of Nagarjuna. It's also a good way, very good way to understand the ideas that were expressed by Nagarjuna in his Mula Madhyamaka Karika. And this is very good way to understand the Madhyamaka philosophy because he goes very deep. And in order to understand the Madhyamaka philosophy, first you need to understand the background. You need to understand the ideas that were expressed by different non-Buddhist philosophers of India about the Atman and about the time and space and etc. And one by one, refuting those ideas, he nears our understanding of the selflessness of Madhyamaka, how we understand, how we are to understand them. The Madhyamaka idea of selflessness, and it also gives us the background of the philosophical dispute between Buddhist and non-Buddhist philosophy. I think it's quite 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 taking. It's quite interesting, and probably it would be good to read it. And that's why I would like to say that for those who are interested in the Buddhist philosophy, especially in the philosophy of Madhyamaka, this is one of the texts that would be good to study, and especially with the reconstruction of Bhattacharya. I think it's quite interesting reading, quite beneficial and useful.
Yeah, and again, brother, like it's in a English translation, so it would be very good if one can read in Tibet with the Tibetan because we don't have Sanskrit. So sometimes the terminology in English, it's very different to understand.
Yes, it's sometimes it's quite difficult to understand, but I hope that one time will come when the terminology of English translation will be a little bit like more the same. Not I didn't say that it will be the same one time, but I hope that it will be more like structured, more like uniform, so that people from different Buddhist backgrounds who read the commentaries and translations will be able to understand it easily. But
Yeah.
until today, it didn't happen. So we have to put a little bit of work in order to understand the translations.
True.
Yes. And then
Okay, so
on this,
okay, Samiksha.
okay. Like, on this note, let's conclude our session. So, I think we have got some future upcoming events to announce. Yeah. So we'll be having a female leaders and leadership in Buddhism program on 19th of December. Okay, and then the time is also given there below. Okay, and do we have any other thing? Okay, now I would then once again thanks brother Bem for his valuable time and sharing this very enriching knowledge with us. At least I have uh, made my understanding some more clear today. So thank you, I really thank you very much for that. And then I would like to invite Samiksha for this four great vows, and then also brother Bem for a small dedication prayer in Tibetan. Yeah, Samiksha.
Okay. The four great vows. Sentient beings are numberless. We vow to send them all. Delusions are endless. We vow to cut through them all. The teachings are infinite. We vow to learn them all. The Buddha way is inconceivable. we vow to attain it. May all beings be well, happy, and safe. Brother Bem?
Jamba Babaji Darkambada, Kundozamba de Yandeshende, the Kungajas Daloji, Gavadida Tanjarato. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Bem.
Thank you, everyone. See you next time in next event.
See ya.
Yeah, thanks.